First of all, our passage tells us that a excellent servant of God who has great people skills is one who is congenial. Congenial. This would be someone who is cordial, who is accommodating, who is pleasant. Some people have a hard time being congenial. It's not naturally a part of how they communicate. Most, if not all of you, know that I love basketball. It's my favorite sport. It's been a part of my life, and I love this time of year when there are the playoffs. And there is one basketball player that I remember back in the day, Charles Barkley. He played in the NBA with three different teams at different times. And Barkley is this 6'6" husky hunk of humanity. And he just was kind of rough and tough when he played the game. He right now is a commentator for TNT as well as CBS. And Barkley, along with others who maybe you've heard of before, a guy by the name of Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson and Larry Bird and some others, he was on that team. It was known as the Dream Team. And the Dream Team was able to go to Barcelona, Spain, in order to play with the other athletes representing our country. And so Charles Barkley is a part of this Dream Team. And there was one game when the United States national players representing us was going against the nation of Angola. I think some of you would even have a hard time. I would have a hard time even finding Angola on a map. In any case, at one point in the game, before an international audience, Barkley pushes this scrawny guy from Angola to the floor. And people took note of that. It was not long after that Charles Barkley was in a bar. Maybe you heard about this account. He's in a bar and there was a 5'2" man who is, for some reason, for the life of me, I can't imagine why he would do this. This 5'2" man is throwing ice cubes at Barkley. This guy is not a Phi Beta Kappa. I mean, he's not a rocket scientist. I mean, why would you do something like that? Well, how did Barkley respond? He gets up, he picks up this 5'2" man, and he throws him through a plate glass window. The guy is not exactly known for being congenial, is he? At least not back at that time in his life. Now, in contrast to this brutal outburst from Barkley, and I'm sure we can think of other people who are much worse than even what Barkley did. We find in our passage here in 2 Timothy chapter 2, Paul says that the Lord's bondservant must not be quarrelsome. Verse 24, not be quarrelsome. Paul has already mentioned quarrels in verse 23, which leads him to reinforce the importance of a servant of God not being engaged in quarreling and getting all wrapped up in dumb questions. And here in verse 24, he uses the word quarrelsome. Back in the day, this whole idea of quarrelsome had reference to armed fighters who were involved in hand-to-hand struggles with one another, of fighting, quarreling. We might think of wrestlers in our day and age who are going at it. And the word quarrelsome came to mean, over the course of time, a war of words. And eventually it came to mean to wrangle, to fight, or to dispute. You know anybody like that? Don't answer out loud. Yeah, it's not a becoming quality of a person who is quarrelsome. An excellent Lutheran scholar by the name of Helensky says that the Lord's bondservant does not wrangle or shout or make a scene in the streets. Listen, fighting never won a convert. Nor has fighting ever been a way to properly correct a Christian who is going out of bounds. What happens when you are using a brace of caustic words that are leaving your mouth, that are putting someone down and tripping them up and making them feel less than the dust of the ground? You're not exactly endearing yourself to that person. This should be a no-brainer for us. And what happens is when you are quarrelsome, when you are using your words, your voice tone, the whole kit and caboodle in an adversarial way, actually what happens is you make people adverse to the point you're trying to make. They don't even hear you after a while. They are adverse to you and what you're trying to express. Being quarrelsome is not where it's at. Rather than that, we need to be congenial. Elder, deacon, deaconess, those of you who are influencing anyone in any way, shape, or form, keep in mind you're never persuasive when you're abrasive. Let that be a brain tattoo in your thinking for a few moments. Okay, so what are we talking about? We're talking about people skills. Being congenial, cordial, accommodating is the way to go for a person with good people skills.